Thumbnail.
Oh.
I was actually kind of doing that. Cheers. And end stream. Okay, great. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Welcome, one and all, to Clinic Hours after round dusk.
Around sundown.
Yes, we're talking our wonderful other folks from RPGClinic. John specifically, who usually, well, I'm quite far from the microphone.
That's all right.
Our wonderful GM John who is not available today because of important things. Bot is not active.
Yeah, there's no bot.
No bot.
No bot and no fun to be had tonight. So you just leave your fun pants.
Yeah,
at the
you'll
door.
just have to have quotes happen to you. Have you announced in Discord? I mean, we announced earlier. So here's the thing, DJ. Discord automatically posts, but sometimes like 20 minutes later.
Sometimes just decides it doesn't want to.
They're like, I don't know, whatever. Hey, you're here though. That's what's important.
Ding. I'm gonna double check.
Okay. In the meantime, I'll just mention, as per the topic, we're talking romance in TTRPGs today from a player perspective, because we're players, #players. And we're going to be taking questions, we're going to be talking about our own experiences, just generally doing a bang-up job, no pun intended, of discussing the topic, as it were. Oh, thanks, Liz. That's lovely.
You're welcome.
No problemo. Excellent. Oh, DJ, do you think that that'll be soon, that you'll be sleepy? Sooner? Later? Well, I love that you're here. That's what's important. Oy! I suppose we'll hold off on the big intro, #the big intro, until Liz is posted there.
Bam.
Excellent.
And I did that thing of the add everyone.
Oh.
Hey, Scott, could I ask you a tiny favor?
You can.
Could you put your water bottle slightly in a different position?
I'll put it right there.
Thank you.
Try not to kick it over.
Whoa.
Hello.
12-hour shift.
Woohoo! Your guess,
Oh
my guess.
God.
That's a lot of hours. So, thank you for being here. But please feel free to pass out as required.
Absolutely.
John! What up? Sitting for 5 minutes. Good. Well, that's great. I'm glad you get a chance to sit. You get a chance to hear our introduction. What are we talking about today, Liz?
Today, we are talking about romance in TTRPGs, specifically from player perspectives. So from the perspectives of PCs.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to, as people already know, mostly what our experience is with tabletop role-playing games. I still think it's important for us to talk a little bit about where we're coming from, because, we have certain experience which might not be mirrored by everybody in the chat or people at home. We may have more experience, we may have less experience, we may have different experience.
Yeah, also bearing in mind that every group of friends, every campaign is different, and it's important to customize and tweak things to suit everybody's comfort level and interest level. So we're going to be talking about what we know, and hopefully it is useful.
I know you didn't do it on purpose necessarily. We're going to be talking about
what we know. Hope y'all find it useful.
So, romance in TTRPGs.
TTRPGs. Question number 1 is, why does my hair look good? Because it was professionally done yesterday. This has nothing to do with my skill level at all.
Okay, yeah, no,
just had to get that out of the way. I don't want anybody thinking that I have skill.
Anything. What? Kung Fu Fenris is correct. We definitely need to start with the elephant in the room. Sex P. How much should you be earning per session? So I'm gonna throw. I am kidding.
I did not. Okay. All right. I was on set yesterday for a commercial, and there was hair and makeup crew. Everybody's wearing visors, masks, goggles. The actors are the only ones who ever take their masks off, and that is for short periods of time. And,
although, to be fair, I think hair salons are open again in the
I think
province,
so,
although
or
I'm
at least in some.
Not feeling particularly happy
I'll just cut my own hair again.
despite my growing out mullet. Anywho. So where are we coming from? Well, okay. So my experience with tabletop role-playing games. I've been a player here on RPGClinic for 5 years now. Several campaigns, many one-shots. Before that, I love role-playing in general. I've participated in a few other campaigns, possibly involving Elizabeth here, possibly involving John. Yeah, mostly, I agree.
But not
some other things as well before that. And then in terms of romance in RPGs, the majority of that comes from interactions between my PCs and some of John's NPCs in the various games that we've played. We'll get a bit more into that at a later time. What's your kind of experience? Where are you coming from?
Same thing. So a lot of TTRPG campaigns that have been GM'd by John, some that had other GMs at the helm, and forum RPGs, but we're not going to get into that today because that could be a stream in and of itself.
Well, then we need to start talking about how to communicate via like text and word, right? Rather than in person, which I think actually leads us very the panic, and then I saw Liz just be like, I can't help you, buddy. But I think that leads us quite nicely into what we need a good appropriate word for that's not like orichalcum or golden. I'm going to call it the Jade Rule of RPGClinic, but we can call it whatever we want to call it. The number one rule of RPGClinic here is
use your word hole.
Really important first step in all situations, right? Yeah. Well, okay. So Bobicus, we're going to get into this in a moment, I think. But I just want to start by saying exactly what we just yelled about. When we're talking romance in RPGs, it's really important to communicate with the other players and with the GM at the table. They may not know where you're coming from. They may not know what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what your character wants, and how are they going to know unless you tell them, right?
So not to sound like broken records, but a lot of the answers to questions that we received and questions that we may get in chat will revolve around this concept, but we are here to offer ideas, a toolkit of sorts, because we're not just coming at this from RPG perspectives, we're also coming at this from actor perspectives. We're both professional actors, and we've had to play a lot of romantic scenes that didn't involve each other.
Truth.
So there are some tips and tricks you pick up along the way on how to deal with it, and we hope that these are useful to you.
Yes, and I will also kind of quickly tangent there by saying that the acting industry is actually finally kind of getting to a place where there's now an industry or a part of the industry around intimacy, and specifically how to participate in intimate scenes safely, physically safely, sure, but also emotionally, being safe with all the participants, and in terms of one's, I don't know, modesty is kind of the wrong, one's dignity, right? So
where one's safety and dignity are respected. So treating it with the same level of importance that you would treat a physical fight on stage or on screen. Bringing somebody in to deal with the more intense, intimate stuff. It doesn't even have to be intense. And sometimes actors and role players, we think,
it'll be more real if we just go for X. And most of the time that ends up with somebody being uncomfortable, let's say, in a more mild scenario, or injury, emotional or physical injury. And that is the opposite of what you are after. So we play games to have fun, right? And then John's discussed the idea of player types and stuff at length, but so go check out the YouTube archive on RPGClinic on YouTube to find out what that's about. But different types of people enjoy games for different reasons, right? Some people enjoy the min-maxing perspective, the mechanics perspective, the planning perspective. Some people enjoy, for lack of a better word, role-playing, storytelling, or just the emotional depth that you get.
That character building, relationship building.
Exactly.
Crafting a narrative.
Right. And so, romance is a part of life, I would argue. Not a part of everybody's life, but like generally it's sort of like part of the human condition. And therefore it kind of ends up being a part of role-playing quite often because we're playing people, or, you know, the equivalents thereof. I think we should mention before we go a little further something that is important in Exalted. We're currently playing an Exalted 3rd edition Dragon-Blooded campaign, Exalted Witch Academy. Catch it right here on RPG Clinic, Sundays at 1800 hours Eastern, or on YouTube if you can.
Yep.
But there's something introduced in Exalted which has been reflected in other games since as well. I don't know if it originated in Exalted or not.
I think many systems have this rule in some shape or form.
Right, exactly. So this is the red rule, and I feel like it's important to it's important to talk about because again, use your word hole is like, it's a context thing. We're gonna say, do this. Step 0, use your word hole. Step 1, do this thing. So again, step 0, red rule exists. The red rule is a rule wherein, in Exalted, or again in role-playing in general, if a character or a non-player character undertakes an action to seduce or put into a sexual situation anybody who does not want it, it automatically fails.
Like a PC or an NPC cannot be involved in a sexual situation without the player's consent.
Right, yeah, it's a better way of putting it. Thank you.
It's just a different way to say it.
It's good. Which is, if I may, like important because, obviously it's important because of consent, which we're going to get into, but it's also important because in certain role-playing games, specifically Exalted, you have supernatural powers, and sometimes supernatural powers are you do what I want. But there's a really fine line between having a character in a role-playing game do what your character wants and taking away a player's agency and making them feel like they have to consent to something that they're not consenting to.
Yeah, if my character gets put in a situation where she's being emotionally manipulated by another character, so long as I am aware that this manipulation is happening and I am allowing it to continue, I'm using emotional manipulation, but the same thing applies to sexual situations, etc. Ripley. Because I am still in control. And this also means at any time, if you decide that you are no longer comfortable, then that's where safety features like cards come in.
Right. Yeah. Do you want me to go away?
Let's just lock one away, shall we?
All right. Consent, cats, consent. Come on. Quick, Liz. Keep talking about it.
So, all of this to say that it is really important to respect what you yourself are comfortable with in a game, and that as soon as somebody else at your table articulates to you what they are comfortable or not comfortable with, you need to respect it. Now, if the two of you are at odds and the two of you are looking to play two very different types of games, it is also completely fine to go your separate ways. I think a lot of people see that as admitting failure, admitting defeat. If you decide that the two of you are just at odds in terms of the types of game that you want to play, but you're actually not. I play Monopoly with house rules. Other people really don't like that. These are two, in my opinion, perfectly valid ways of playing Monopoly. However, we will never play Monopoly together.
Right.
Because that's not the game that either of us want to play. But that doesn't ruin our friendship. That doesn't ruin the fact that we want to play other games together. So that's...
Right.
Use that as an analogy
Put
here.
our desktop down even further. There you go. I hope so, Kung Fu Fenris, because that actually sounds awesome. Yeah, phase 1, get the Monopoly. Phase 2, burn it down. It's going to be great. Okay, but we're not talking Monopoly today. But we are. You make a good point, though, and I only heard some of it. But it's okay.
It's okay.
But the idea of, like, you know, knowing what kind of game you want to play in, and what's going to bring you enjoyment in your game. And sometimes that is at odds with other people around the table, and knowing when those are things that you can collaborate and talk about and
reach compromises.
compromise on. Exactly.
Without detracting from either of your enjoyments of the game to any significant degree.
Right. So, okay. We have lots of like questions that we've already pulled from the Discord that we're going to be discussing in more detail. But I feel like, it's worth... also, throw them in chat, guys. We'll add them to the list as we go, if you have any questions, of course. But I think we should start by sort of exploring what it means to have a romantic liaison in a role-playing game.
Yeah.
And I guess more specifically, like, why it might make part of a cool game. Why it could be good for cool moments. Like, do you have any examples, not to necessarily say you must include romance in all your games or else you are playing subpar games, but like, do you have any examples of like when, from RPG Clinic games, of like when romance was a useful story point? I do.
So I see... I choose to lump romances in under the relationship umbrella.
Oh, yes, let's do that.
Which I'm sure, that's a romance is a type of relationship, which means that if your PC, like say Nyx in Full Party, doesn't really experience romantic feelings towards people, that was a choice that I made towards her character, she still experienced very deep relationships and bonds that I wanted to expand upon as the story continued, River Jade being the example of that. It became like this really beautiful friendship, and that was what I wanted to explore with her. Ray, that was a character where I wanted to explore somebody who is very loyal and fiercely protective of the bonds that she forms. And so when she did form a monogamous, so she thought, relationship with Ember, then that same fierce protection followed them throughout the entire campaign and gave some really cool moments where she had to choose between him and something else.
Right.
In my, in Changeling, I wanted Sophia to love being in love and want to form emotional connections with people. And then once she experienced them and their art, to want to be with them and consummate that.
Oh, lovely.
And finally, I'm going to use, and I want to talk more about Exalt Witch Academy later,
good.
But Exalt Witch Academy, there's a character who I'm going into this with the intention of she's not used to relationships really of any kind, be that friendship or romance, and I want her to learn how to experience both over this game. This could be a drawn out process because I want to do it justice, but that's the intention there.
I think that's a really cool point that you make, Liz, about the idea of like having, and we talked about character goals 2 weeks ago now, I think. I talked about character goals a couple weeks back. The idea of having things in mind for your character in terms of like places that the places you'll go, right? Sort of ideas for what might become of them in the future, depending on how the story kind of evolves. Again, some people like to play role-playing games some people like to play role-playing games for the excitement of planning things, or the excitement of like executing things, or the excitement of being like, I cut a dragon's head off and I earned like 8,000 gold. That's a lot of gold. Like, good for you,
Can I have that gold?
Yeah. Can we have it, please? What's the exchange rate of gold to Canadian dollars? But I totally agree with you. Romance can be, for your characters, an extension of the broad umbrella of relationships. Any character that doesn't have any other relationships with other people is playing a different game from everybody else. They're playing a game that is alone. And I would say, unless you are playing a solo RPG, on purpose, which you can, and I think Super Dylan can maybe speak to that, possibly. But like, unless you're doing that, that's not the same game that everybody else is in. Whether your relationships with the people around the table are like apathetic, antagonistic, romantic, friendly, loyal, really strong, or like not kind of shaky, you need to be building relationships with the other people around the table. And that includes, of course, the NPCs that your GM is playing. Yeah. What do I want to say about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, as you pointed out, romance is a great extension of that. When you enter into a relationship with another PC or another NPC, sometimes that relationship, like in real life, you find yourselves attracted to each other, or find that the relationship kind of deepens into something that we call more than friendship, you know? There we go. So Super Dylan likes solo RPG a lot, but
gotta be in the mood.
Very good. Yeah, and I just think that it kind of bears mentioning, you know, in that sense. In terms of my experience also on RPGClinic games, I think Brom is the character that sort of had, you know, the most relationships.
Well, you had a few pre-existing
Right,
relationships.
right.
That
Actually,
you
let's talk about that.
And I'm talking romantic
Hydrate.
relationships. Not,
Yes.
Yes, hydrate.
Yeah, this is actually going to come up. It's one of our questions that we got from the Discord already, which we'll be answering later. But like,
well, maybe we should just bring it
let's
in now.
just jump it in right now. Yeah. So for PCs, what are the pros and cons of planned relationships? So you define them in your character backstory versus relationships that start after the game starts. And then maybe we can talk a bit more about what it means when it's PC NPC, PC
versus PC.
Yeah.
Super Dylan put out a cool tweet about this yesterday or today.
Oh yeah?
Just wanting to know what, like, some examples of your PC's best friend and how they got to be friends, if it was with an NPC or another
so
PC, and what their
sweet.
what their origin story was.
Right, and so actually, if I can jump in really quickly then on that front, I like our first 2 games on RPGClinic, Exalt Twitch Nexus and Changeling the Streaming, I had a character who had essentially no predefined relationships. Jorik didn't have any really when I created the character, versus Brom had a lot. Some of them were secret to me at first, but like...
As in secret from you?
A secret from me,
Yeah.
not secret to... Yeah, secret from... They were kept secret from me because of a flaw that Brom had.
What was that flaw, Scott?
It's amnesia.
Yeah.
I took
Always goes well, doesn't
It's
it?
a real classic. Yeah, that was such a great assortment of flaws that I took. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. But I had a lot of predefined relationships, which means when you're playing a character and you know that your character probably gets along pretty well with X other character. So how do you kind of like imbue them with that feeling? What are the pros and cons of having pre-planned relationships versus developing them as you go? I think... Liz, I'll ask you the question. Just kidding. I'm going to answer it. I believe there's a big pro of creating a relationship as you go is that it's going to be natural. It occurred naturally. It evolved out of actual words and phrases and actions and events that happened between you and the other NPC. And that's like a big pro, is that it feels more real because it develops the way that a real relationship does.
Yeah.
Like,
you, Scott, are literally
Hello.
getting to know this NPC
Right.
at the same time that your character is getting to know them.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of truth to that. A campaign that we were both a part of that we did not stream was D&D 5th campaign. And Scott and I decided to play characters that had been in prison together for a while.
Can I be honest? I had forgotten that was part of our backstory.
I know. Well, because that and River Jade and Nyx in full party are, I think, the only 2 times that I've actually like sat down with another player who's going to be taking part in the game and said, hey, do you want to write in some backstory for our 2 characters to share?
Right.
And so that, I don't remember a lot about our dynamic. I do remember that we gave each other a really hard time because the idea was that we'd been stuck in prison together, just getting on each other's nerves until we finally busted out.
Yeah, I think on the order of years.
Yeah.
that
Oh,
we
it had
in
been a
prison.
really
I
long
was
time.
quite young and you were quite
I was
old.
very old.
So
very
it couldn't
elderly.
have been like 20 years, but like it was
But
a long
I had been in
time.
jail for 40 years.
And
then you were
that's
thrown
like actually
into my solitary
incredible.
confinement cell.
It's no longer solitary.
So it's-
Get that asshole in there too. Can you 40 years? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that game right now. But it did mean that we had a base to build on.
Yeah.
I think DJ actually kind of, I don't have the feature chat's not working,
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately, guys, sorry.
No
But DJ here, I'll just read it out. I could liken it to a custom kitchen meal versus a la carte. Knowing what to expect, at least in part, means you have less to worry about, but less that kind of grows or develops. If you start the game with a predefined relationship, I don't know if you're going to feel constrained by it necessarily, but you're right, DJ. I think the pro there is that you have less to worry about. Oh no, I wonder how I'm going to feel about this new NPC. Don't worry about it. You know that you're on good terms, romantic terms, antagonistic terms, etc.
You two play bridge together every week. And also you can have shared secrets,
Ooh.
which is really fun. Sometimes, like John always encourages us to have secrets that are kept from the other PCs. But on top of that, you can have secrets that only you and this other person from your past know, but that person from your past is now in your present, and so you're having to navigate that. So that can create really fun obstacles, interesting moments.
Kung Fu Fenris, I think, sort of similarly, finds it exhausting to try to decipher other people. And I imagine Kung Fu Fenris, you mean the characters at the table rather than the like people playing them, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
It can be really exhausting getting to know new people on a deep level. So
yeah, of course.
It that can extend to your PC as well. I mean, how many conversations have we had that's like, tell me about yourself. Tell me the story of your life.
That's a good icebreaker though.
So if you don't particularly enjoy that aspect, then writing in these pre-established relationships makes tons of sense.
Yep.
Tons.
And again, as long as the people that you're writing them with are aware of them, because otherwise they're going to make assumptions. Yeah. And maybe that's going to go poorly for you, right?
Yeah, I think Jess and I just like sat down and came up with this like 2-pager of how we met and like what we've been up to for next summer for JD. Yeah, it was super fun. And we didn't even send it to John. It was just for us.
No, but we kind of explore it, and like there was a prologue, kind of.
A little bit of one.
A little bit. Yeah. Very cool.
Okay, what changes when it's PC NPC romance versus PC PC?
That I should have separated that. That's totally a different question.
Yeah, but let's play with it now.
Okay, let's play with it now. I say 2 things. One of which is really obvious. Also, has the screen kind of changed? Is it just me?
No, the sun's going down.
Oh, that would do it.
It'll
Real
be
Brick
dark
Wall! Thank you very much, and welcome.
Thank you, Real Brick Wall.
So, 2 things I would say about PC versus PC NPC. One of them is obvious. The PCs are played by other people at the table. The NPC is played by one person, or 2 people, or whatever, the GMs, who have to then keep track of more than one person at a time. There's naturally going to be a little bit of switching on their part to be like, oh, I need to be this person right now, or whatever it is. Again, folks who GM can maybe chime in here with I love that challenge, or that's the worst part for me, or whatever. That's like, I think the kind of the obvious like distinction is that, hey, thanks for the follow. Sidar Heil is that PCs only have to worry about one character at a time, and their character and their story is driving them forward. So they're going to, I think, naturally be more invested in the relationships that you're building with them.
Like another PC.
Yeah, with another PC.
Yeah.
Also, the other sort of distinction, I think, is eluding me right now. So I'm going to throw it over to you.
I'm going to throw something in there. So one, like a positive to PC is exactly what Scott said. And I think especially in LARPs, PC romance can make a lot of sense, especially if there are only a few GMs or NPCs roaming around, and this gives you more opportunity to play out scenes. Something to bear in mind when you're in a tabletop scenario is that if there are 3 people at the table and 2 PCs are in a romantic relationship, you have to be really cognizant of not leaving the third one out. Even if there's 4, even if there's 5, if 2 of you are involved in a romantic relationship, that doesn't mean it can't happen, but it does mean that you need to make sure that you're not just third wheeling this other person the entire campaign.
Agreed. I think that actually brings up a much bigger conversation that we aren't going to talk about right now, but like when does a game migrate from like intimate to moderate to like large?
Hot and heavy?
No, like in terms of the number of people. Hot
Right.
and heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think that just raises an interesting question about, like, you know, when someone is running a game, at what point does it go from, like, okay, there's a few of us, we can take a moment to build this relationship, versus, okay, guys, like, I like that you're smooching, but, like, we're going to leave that to the side because we need to talk about these guys now. They've been sitting patiently for half an hour.
I'll also throw it out there. I find it can be easier to play out romances with NPCs. It's easier to have that distance, to keep everything at arm's length, I guess. Because your brain recognizes that this person, the GM, the storyteller, is playing a bunch of different characters. It's not one character that is associated with them. So if you're not sure about how to approach romance in games, then I think an NPC PC romance is a better place to start. That's my opinion.
That's a really good point. Like, I think ideally, people who are running games, the GM or the storyteller, like, ideally they're going to be generous scene partners for you, the player, right? Because they appreciate that they're playing characters that are in service to your story. Like, us, the players, like, it's our story that we're telling collaboratively with everybody else. Whereas another PC might have concerns about how the romance or the relationship will reflect on them, or how it might impact them.
They have other goals that they want to fulfill as well. With an NPC, you can make the romance as big a part or as small a part of your story as you want, and you can dictate that.
Yeah.
You can have more control. But if it's two PCs, there are two very strong voices at the table who are involved in making those decisions.
Question: Have we had? And again, not to keep bringing it back to Clinic Hour, or like RPG Clinic games specifically, but like, have we had a lot of PC romance in RPG Clinic games?
So I can use Good Society as a huge...
Yes, that would be the one
as a huge example, because that was all PC.
All PC romance all the time. That was the point, though. That was the game, like, which I loved. Big fan, obviously. Though somehow I still ended up in a relationship with the person I always end up in a relationship with.
Oh my god, this is my surprised face.
Okay.
Hey, DJ Zesty says, question, how fun is it to set up two NPCs into a romantic conversation for the GM to act out both sides of? I know you're joking, but honestly, that doesn't actually sound super fun after the first 5 seconds.
I was gonna say, once, hilariously fun,
subsequently,
amazing. If then the GM is like, hang on, you know, Brevin and... Oh, Brevin's an actual character. I was trying to think of dwarf names or something. Feely and Keely are gonna...
Aren't they brothers?
Damn it! You know what I mean? Like,
their names rhyme. They might
be brothers.
Oh my god.
You know what I mean? Like, if the GM's like, oh, hang on, it's time for another romance scene between these two again. You're like, but I'm playing. And they're like, well, it's not XP if it's all of you. So, again, question number 1, how much XP should you be earning a session? The answer may surprise you. I'm going to make that the tagline.
I'm going to remove this because we talked about it. Okay, Wes has just joined us.
Wes.
I'm thinking now would be a really good time to address Wes's question, which is how to deal with OOC, out of character, aspects. And to elaborate, that means, what if you or other people at your table are in relationships with other people who are not a part of your game? What if you're in relationships with other people who are a part of your game, and also like role-playing romance with a friend? If there's awkwardness there, do we have any tips to get past that?
That's a really great question, actually, and I think it does reflect quite a bit of our experience as actors.
We can very much talk about our experience.
You know, well, yeah, but like, you know, specifically in the acting industry, you often end up getting to know communities aren't that large unless you're talking about like the LA film community or whatever. So you end up getting to know people, and then you end up doing romantic scenes with them, and it's like, oh, okay, so I guess I have to like reorient my perspective for now. That's a good question about like tips and stuff. I think for me, I you know, I don't use like I don't necessarily like project things necessarily, but like I find it useful to if we're talking about how to kind of like authentically like or get into the idea of role playing with somebody else at the table, if you're already friends, and then we'll come back to the other side of that, which is what if people.
So if you're already friends but you're not romantically involved.
Yeah, but your characters end up in a relationship.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of useful to think about what those feelings are like for you, the person, and then imagine.
Do you mean your character?
No, sorry.
So you as a player.
Yeah, I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this. But like, no, it's good.
No,
Liz.
No.
Shut up. There are people watching us and depending on this. I'm sorry to tell you to shut up. See, I'm using my word hole to apologize. I'm sorry.
Word hole.
Word hole. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Incredible.
Verb to word hole.
To word hole. I word hole, you word hole.
We all word hole.
He, she, they.
Nous, vous.
Oh,
Word
nous,
hole.
vous. Word hold on. Okay.
Hi, Cheeks.
Hi, Cheeks. Cheeks just pops in every time I like yell at you, and I'm really sorry.
Or do a Scottish accent.
Won't be making that mistake again.
Speaking of Cheeks, Drag Race UK has 2 Scottish queens.
Well, for now. We only just started, so no spoilers. I think it's useful to kind of draw on some experience that you have of what romance sort of feels like, and then, imagine what actions you might take or what those feelings kind of enkindle in you, right? So that's separate from the game. That floof. Then, what does your character sort of like think or feel about romance?
Yeah.
And transpose some of those actions onto them. It keeps like it keeps a distance, and you've said this already. It keeps a distance between you and your character and the other character and them. There's like a distance between them. That means that hopefully you won't end up kind of like putting feelings onto the other player when it's your character putting feelings onto the other character.
Yeah, hopefully there's minimal bleed. This is
bleed.
The intention of this is minimal bleed. Because with romance, it's really easy for things to get muddy. And for feelings to be put on the wrong individual.
And
so
I'm sure many people here will have horror stories about people who roleplay together who are in relationships, or who aren't, but want to be in relationships, but who are in relationships with other people, but want to be in a relationship with
it happens
all
to
the time.
actors all the time. Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling falling in love on the set of The Notebook. People who play Romeo and Juliet falling in love all the time because you're playing these characters in these scenes, and you tumble into this in real life as well, and then the play ends and the magic is gone and you're like, oh, I've made a huge mistake.
Well, I want to dig into that a little deeper.
Yep.
Human beings have a thing that happens to them. Feelings. hang on, I'm going somewhere with this. I know.
So
no, feelings engender physical reactions. You produce hormones, your body temperature changes, whatever, regardless of what those feelings are. And therefore, by using those physical processes, we can trigger those feelings. It's a feedback loop. What I'm trying to say is, like, if you need to be scared, if you need to be frightened or sad, something that some actors do is they will mimic the breathing of someone who is scared or sad. And then you feel that way, literally, because you can affect your body that way. It's weird, but what I'm trying to say is that, like, when you get into a situation where you're encouraged to feel love for another person, you'll trick your body into loving that person.
Absolutely.
And it happens. It absolutely happens.
So I have some things that I have started doing when I'm playing a character who has feelings for somebody. And that is, as much as possible, I try to make it about the character. Yeah. So when you're playing a scene as an actor and there's another scene partner opposite you, you're supposed to want something from them. And by that, I do not mean necessarily romantic. I mean, like, you're trying to convince them to loan you money. You're trying to convince them to believe that you're right. So it's all about focusing your attention and your wants and your needs on the other person.
Right.
So when you're in a role-playing scenario, it can also be very helpful, and that helps to create a divide between player and character. a trick that I use to do that is I write.
There you go.
I pretend I'm doing, I do like diary entries as my PCs.
Cool.
If they have a crush on somebody, then I list the things that character, like the traits that character has that my PC is really falling for. That helps get you into your PC's mindset, and it helps you to focus on the character and not the person who's playing them.
Absolutely.
And create a divide there. Really important.
I want to take
find that helps.
That sounds really awesome, actually, really helpful.
I'm doing that right now.
I'm going to take a... for...
I mean, not right now. Like, no.
Thanks, Pando. I'm going to take a sharp left.
Yes.
Same question, though, because I think something that I learned recently, or that I've sort of started thinking more about recently, is when we role play, often, again, it depends on your table and your situation and your group, but... Hey, thanks. We often find ourselves like switching in and out of character and game quite fluidly, right? You're sitting at the table, you're chatting, someone makes a joke out of character. Hey, can you pass the chips? Hey, my character's gonna stab you now. You know, it's like, it's all kind of, it's very fluid.
Yeah.
I think it could be an interesting tool for your table, for your group, as it is kind of for ours to a certain extent, to have rituals, things that you do to say, okay, now we are entering the game, therefore things that happen here are in the game and not in the real world.
The tag in, tag out.
Tag in, tag out. There you go.
Intimacy coordinators use that when you are rehearsing a scene as a way of checking in to the work and then checking out at the end. That's a way of protecting yourself. John does it with the Johnalog and the various rituals that we go through at the beginning of stream. So Johnalog, the safety card talk, greeting the moderators. This gives a sense of ritual. Once the Johnalog has begun, the game has begun. Then at the end, we have Fancy Corner. We have music that we play every time. And that helps draw you out of it. Very useful.
While, although, if you watch our games, which I know a lot of you do, you'll see that to varying extents, we are both in and out of character in that time. But there's a definite sense of, okay, anything that happens from here to here, if it feels like it wasn't in character, we should address it.
Yes.
Right? Because it's part of that zone where it was like, okay, but we tagged in, so when you said that you liked me and my face, did you mean me or did you mean the character? Right? If you need to clarify, that's the sort of time that we would clarify.
And that is fantastic because this ties back into using your word hole, but it's also the idea of putting things out there. Anything you think there's a stupid question in your head, be this about rules clarification in combat, or be this about, can we clarify this moment? Because I think I heard one thing, but maybe y'all heard something else. I'm trying to be better about that these days, just being like, hey, didn't get this. Can we just reiterate?
Yeah.
Great. Super important, because the more you do that, the less weird you'll feel. If there's a moment that you're not sure if you interpreted correctly, you could just say it.
Yeah.
You can just call it out.
Yeah, you can call it out. If it requires a flag of whatever safety tool you're using, great. Those are there for a reason. If you're not using safety tools in your game, maybe you should consider it.
Yeah.
I
think you definitely should consider it. If for no other reason then, the discussion around, hey y'all, I think our game should have safety tools, because it's always better, as Kate says, to know where the fire extinguisher is
great.
than to not know and have something happen and need to get it. Enabling these types of conversations, and this is largely for GMs, but as a player, you can go to your GM and ask them how they would feel about having this. If you've already had your campaign going on for a while and you want to throw a session 0 right in the middle so that you can establish more rules and rituals to make the game better and to make everyone safer, go for it. And I would hazard to say, just going way back to Wes's question about if other people at the table are in relationships, either with other people in the game or people outside the game, session 0 is a really great time to try to understand everybody's comfort levels.
Yes.
Hey everyone, so Scott and Liz are in a relationship and they're playing in this game. How do you two feel about being in relationships with other NPCs or with PCs independently of each other?
Right.
And then we go, well, we're actors and we've experienced this kind of stuff before. So
no big deal.
We're
Exactly,
fine with it, but we'll make sure to let you know if we're no longer fine.
Totally cool. Agreed.
I'm a huge advocate of these types of conversations.
Yeah. I think it's also worth bearing in mind that, like, I think some people come to role-playing, like any hobby, they come to it as a way of meeting people and interacting with people, which is awesome, because I think that it is, by kind of definition, a social activity. And that's the best kind of hobby. Social ones. Well, sorry, it's the best kind of hobby. It's the best kind of hobby for, like, meeting and getting to know people, is social ones. You know, if you were taking, like... Okay, no, never mind. I was going to start to, like, name hobbies that I was like, this wouldn't be very good for meeting people, but, like, I'm not going to shit on anyone's hobbies. Playing solo Arkham Horror, the card game, for example, is not great for meeting people. Scott!
Which is exactly why he does it.
Exactly. I don't need any more people in my life. I love you all the time. So, that said, I do think that it's important to recognize that, much like in any hobby where you get to meet people, some people are there to meet and get to know, and some people are there to have fun, you know, with no expectations, generally. And so again, the idea of having that session 0 or having those expectations well defined is very useful. In a LARP setting, in a large scale game setting, it might be a bit harder to do because people might come in and out. There might be too many people to sort of like have that initial discussion originally. But then I think that, again, goes back to the people who are in charge, be that a storyteller or a group of storytellers or people running the game or whatever. It's up to them to make it really clear, okay, guys, from this moment to this moment, things that happen shouldn't carry over out of game unless discussed with that person, right? Hey, when you said this, did you actually mean that? No, we were in game, therefore it meant what it was. So in terms of how to deal with the sort of out of character aspects of people who are in relationships out of game or maybe sort of looking for a relationship with another player at the table, role-playing is a hobby and it's a social event, but it can be a little fraught because you're saying things to another person, but what you're actually doing is someone you are playing, who might be different from you, is saying things to another person who is different from the person who's playing them. You can't... we just need to be aware of, like, this tagging in, tagging out kind of mentality.
Yeah, and of course shit happens, and sometimes somebody who's flirting with you in game, in fact, wants to date you out of game, and that's really difficult. And I'm gonna be completely honest, it's a tough thing to get past if their feelings are what they are and your feelings are what they are. I mean, getting through it and continuing to play the game can be difficult. I would recommend, I'm just putting it out there, but if somebody expresses feelings for you out of game and you don't return them, I think the two of you should come to an agreement that your characters will not hook up in game. Gonna put that out there. I don't think it's a good idea, but you can all do what you want, but I'm just saying, like, I've been to theater school and I've seen that shit go down.
Right. And, you know, also the web series that we were both actors in had as a major plot line, I would say, two characters, PCs getting together, then the players hooking up, and then the players kind of falling out of the relationship, but the PCs staying together. Guess what they did? They used their fucking word holes. Like, they talked to each other.
I mean, a little late, but yes.
Oh my god, spoilers! Oh no, Rocky. Oh,
Rocky,
shit.
no.
No! It came out like 5 years ago. We're so old. 6 years. No, five and a bit. Doesn't matter.
No, we were in a castle.
We were in a castle! Okay.
I remember leaning out that turret window, trying to get the best possible Wi-Fi.
To
see what our view count was at. Like, leaning.
We were like, did we get any comments we should respond to? Okay, that's a whole other kettle of fish. Sorry that I ruined it for you, Pook. You did watch the finale, right, Pukajutsu?
No, Pook's been saving it for rewatch 18.
Oof. Can you, the coitus interruptus feeling of watching a series till the finale, but not the finale every time?
No. So first watch, you watch Ep 1. Second watch, 1, 2. You just keep going.
You hate Ep 1 so much.
Yes.
So, Kung Fu Founders had a lot to sort of mention here about
it was not
wizarding.
A bit heavier and intense a question at all, Wes.
No, it's great.
We hope that we answered it in a way that is helpful.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think that's...
Don't hesitate to let us know if you need any more clarification on things, or if you could use more ideas to distill what we said for the how to negotiate and navigate the out of character aspect.
Thanks, Pook.
Tagging in, tagging out to RPGs. Having a session 0 if you haven't had one already to establish what everyone's comfortable with. Writing in character so you can help distinguish in character thoughts versus out of character thoughts. There was one more, but I
don't know if there was, but I want to toss in something that I think only works in certain kinds of games, and only if everybody is like cool with the idea of it, which is off-session role-playing, like between-session role-playing. So as an example, I played in a LARP a changeling LARP for a while, where we had like a forum for between-session content, and my character sort of like started into a relationship with another PC. I mean, there's a lot to dig into like why he was interested in that, but that's another kettle of fish. But like, what was useful is that I didn't feel like it was a LARP, so we were, the majority of the session was spent sort of like advancing personal storylines anyway. But I didn't want to feel like every time I went, once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever it was, like, oh, I'm going to spend the whole time just playing my story and not participating in anyone else's. So instead, we used between session role-playing to be able to communicate about like, okay, this is what my character would do, this is what your character would do, whatever.
Well, that's a great idea. That can tie into the PC romance as well, to keep other people at the table from feeling left out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So exactly, I didn't feel like, okay, well, we're always just going to be off in the corner, like getting to know each other, and everyone else is like, hey, where are they? We have to fight a bad guy, or whatever it is. But I also, it sort of was satisfying for me in the sense that like there was LARPing and then also text-based role-playing. So there was like a double kind of thing going on there, which was nice.
So I'll just tack on to that, saying that that is a wonderful idea, and if you decide to introduce downtime, just make sure that the GM and all other people at the table are cool with it, and obviously make sure that anything that is said in downtime doesn't affect what's happening in the main storyline in any big way, because that would really suck if you came back and you were like, I've moved across the world with you. We've run away together. Yeah,
we eloped and now we're married. Like, everyone would be like, what are you talking about? That's wild. Like, why didn't our PCs, NPCs, everybody, get to participate in that part of the story with you?
Yeah.
Because it's everybody's game. That's the key here, right? It's not just yours. Do you want to jump into this?
Definitely.
This is a great question, DJ.
So, DJ Zesty's question: how would you go about bringing a slightly more strong-headed player into the idea of respecting boundaries? Within the red line, of course, but someone who is always inappropriate. Okay, so this is difficult because it kind of depends on if they're being inappropriate out of character or in character. Because I do think the way of
addressing
it might, like, is it their character who's being inappropriate, in which case is that something to say, hey, by the way, your character's making these comments and like it's really not adding to my enjoyment of playing my character or in games with you, so can you tone it back a bit? To out of game inappropriate, which is making everybody at the table uncomfortable.
So I think DJ, this is, I think, something that if we're talking about out of character kind of like interpersonal relationships, everyday life, I think this is a part of everybody's life. At some point, you're going to have to interact with somebody who, for a whole host of reasons, might not appreciate or understand your boundaries, sort of what you consider to be societal norms, but those can vary person by person. And depending on your relationship with them, a work relationship, a friendly relationship, a romantic relationship, right? You might not feel empowered to address them directly. I'm just putting it out there that, like, I think everybody deals with that in life. So it's very common. I also want to point out that, like, I am now in my 30s. I still feel very uncomfortable confronting anybody about anything.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not, that's not to be like, well, we're giving up on your question.
No, but I to jump in,
Yeah.
I think that this is, again, where session zeros really come in handy, because they are intended to be rules that apply to everybody. And the clearer that you are about the type of game that is going to be run, then the more you can call back to if somebody crosses a line, even if it's not in a major way, if it's something that is indicative of a bigger problem down the road, then you say, hey, remember what we set up in session 0? Mm-hmm. Like, we don't do talk about this. We don't cross these lines. We don't make these types of jokes. No.
Yeah. And there are, I think, general sort of like tips and tricks for doing that sort of thing, which I want to address as well, because I think it's useful. Confronting people is usually less effective if you're in a group, because they'll feel more defensive. So you probably want to find a situation where you can sort of, hey, do you mind if I have a private word with you? Rather than criticizing them or their actions, you want to try to phrase it in the sense of, when this happens, I feel this way. Or, when you do this, I feel this. Again, it doesn't keep the responsibility off them, but it's a conflict resolution tactic that, like, I know and use, which has to do more with just helping somebody sort of like feel like empathize with where you're coming from. So rather than saying you did this and it was wrong, instead saying, hey, when this happens, you might not realize, but I feel like this.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going to get into a whole thing about, like, what if they lack the ability to empathize with you? That's a whole other, we're not talking about that today. That's like wild.
And there are also lines that when they're crossed, it's bad enough that it's not like, it no longer becomes a subjective, I am reacting to you badly. Yeah. It's a this objectively is a bad, is a bad behavior.
And actually, I do want to underline that, because you're right, Liz. Not that I misspoke, but like, no. I think that's a really important point. I tend to, for myself, I tend to phrase things in that way. Like, oh, what's going on, Ella? Oh.
She's getting high off catnip.
Ella brought a toy in and was meowing with it in her mouth, so it was a very strange sound. I'm just going to go and see if she needs to. I have an idea, but I doubt it.
She's got a catnip toy in her maw. Maybe she has to take a poop.
I hope that partially answers DJ's question.
Yeah, DJ, I hope that's helpful, and we can definitely empathize that it is incredibly difficult, and sometimes the best course of action is for it to come from the GM. Sometimes it's best to speak to the person one-on-one. Sometimes it's best for the person who knows them best to speak to them one-on-one if this is a problem that multiple people are having with them. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all conflict resolution, and even if you find the one that would fit best, you still might end up losing that person as a player in the game.
Yeah.
But as hard as that is, often the game ends up stronger for it.
Yeah.
Or it ends and a new one pops up in its place.
Yeah, like I was saying before as well, like, role-playing is a social hobby, again, generally. What was...
I was looking for Ella.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was so cute, because you just went, like, off camera. I didn't... It's creepy. Yeah, like, it's a social hobby, and therefore you're going to run into all of the benefits and the pitfalls of interacting with other human beings. Don't ask me how I feel about other people. Just kidding. Actually, this also...
We're trying to buy a house in the woods.
I wonder why. Hey, neighbor, get out of here.
Oh my god.
I'm just kidding. It's What is your most positive experience with romances in TTRPGs? Wes, you're far enough into Changeling. I'm just going to say Kyoko. That's all I'm going to say about that. No, I'm going to say Kyoko, and I'm going to say Kay, and I'm going to say Claire. I'm just going to say Braum. Fuck it. Braum.
Braum was your most positive romance.
Shut up. Yes. What I mean is, John. My most positive experience with romances in RPGs was taking a character, having the opportunity to play a character.
No, quote sorry.
No, sorry, guys. Having the chance to play a character through getting to know someone, getting to fall in love with someone, getting to remember someone and meet them that he used to be in love with, having both ends of that spectrum, then also having the perspective of interacting with a character that he used to love and kind of doesn't anymore in the same way. So it's having all three of those experiences in the same game is really cool.
And he doesn't remember half of them.
Who?
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Truthfully. What about you, Liz? Thoughts, feelings, like just generally?
So...
You can say pork buns.
Now I will. Ray and Ember were like, that was epic because that spanned many, many, many episodes.
Yes.
They got together in like ep 6 or something.
It was really early.
It was super early. And they were like constant throughout the whole thing. So that was really like the longest romance I have ever participated in an RPG. And yeah, the like trials and tribulations that came with that, secret marriages, babbies, all sorts of things, life and death situations, casual. Yeah. But I also really liked Sophia and Incisor's weird, fraught, troubled relationship.
Yeah,
that was very challenging, and that kind of goes into. If I may, we see romances in game. We see romances in game. What about romances ending?
What about romances ending?
So, what do you think about that?
I
what do you
believe that, as you kind of said earlier in the stream, romance and romantic entanglements are an extension of what comes naturally to characters in an RPG, which is building relationships with the people around them. Not all characters will enter into romantic relationships with other characters. Again, maybe depending on maybe you're living, in a world where you only dungeon delve and therefore there's no time for romance, only treasure. The real treasure was the gold, not the friends we made along the way. Real brick wall, big oof. But I think also then a part of relationships is the fact that some relationships don't go the distance. They don't last forever. In fact, every relationship kind of has a certain ebb and flow to it, right? Some relationships are... Pure mad shagger. Big fan, Cheeks. Always have been. Always will be.
One day I want Cheeks to record that quote and then I'll use it as my ringtone.
Yeah, ringtone.
Yeah.
What if it goes off on in public?
I hope it does.
I would. The best thing about my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen to this. Who the fuck is Jorik, madam? This is a Wendy's. Okay. So I believe that it is a natural part of how relationships play out. I would say, as someone who plays in games, I don't think it's particularly useful to envisage how a relationship is going to end when you're starting one. That doesn't feel particularly useful, because then you're playing the arc with a view to where it's going to go, rather than living it moment to moment sort of more naturally. Again, guys, just to emphasize, we're really coming at playing in games from an actor's perspective. A lot of our shit is about how we approach our gigs as well. Well, our work, I mean.
Yeah, but going back to the Sophia Incisor thing, so that ended, and that made me sad as a player, because I know that Sophia would have loved, someone was asking about polyamory and Sophia, she loved Incisor and Zeron very, very, very much.
And in very different ways.
And in very different ways. And I think she would have loved to have continued a romantic relationship with both of them. However, John made the very cool decision of making that not what Incisor wanted.
Yeah.
And so I needed to deal with that. My PC needed to deal with that. And it was like really sad and beautiful. And then they ended up with this like nice relationship afterwards. But that was really cool. And I don't know, shout that out.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I think it's really, I think it's important, again, when we're talking about, Ripley, please, this is a family stream. I think it's really important to, and sometimes things happen in game that we're not necessarily prepared for, right? You might feel some way about something until it actually happens and then be like, oh, it's not okay, or oh, this is great, or whatever. Again, this is where safety tools, conversations, being able to like pause and talk to people, it can really come in handy. Is incredibly necessary. But like, I think it's, I've always been really open to the idea of relationships kind of growing and ending in different ways, because I think that gives you a really varied roleplay experience, right?
Yeah.
Everything is unique, and so any relationship that you have, well, think of it that way, right? Your PC has infinite possibilities with any other PC or NPC. So whatever you and another PC or NPC do together will never be exactly the same as in any other game you play. Even if you tried, even if the other player tried, circumstances are always going to be a little bit different. Therefore, the way that a relationship ends, if it ends, will always have a bit of different baggage to it, and will have a different feeling. And I think that that's worth, wanting to experience, I think.
And the more that you take the current circumstances of the relationship into consideration and don't pre-plan too much, then the more truthful an ending will feel.
Yeah, I think, though, just to like tack onto that as well, if you realize as something is happening that it is not okay with you for a variety, any reason, because we don't need to justify it, you need to be okay with telling people that at the same time. Okay, I actually don't think this relationship should end like this right now. Again, this goes back to Wes's question about out of character versus in character conversations that happen.
Yep.
If you want your PC to be doing something and another person wants their PC to be doing something different, you guys need to be able to negotiate that.
Yes.
How can you both have fun with the game that you're having? It doesn't have to be like a battle to the death, like which of our characters is going to get their way, It doesn't have to be like that. Although I will say PvP in-game is awesome as well. Just because there's so much like emotional stake. But that's a whole other kettle of fish. That's actually, you know what? I want to get into that.
Okay.
PC relationships
Nice.
feel like they could be, this is another pro, feel like they could be really exciting because there's already going to be stakes.
Yep.
Because your PC is the only one you have until you make another one. Their PC is the only one they have until they make another one, right? And so in that moment, it's like building a relationship in real life. There's stakes to it, and I'm not saying you have to feel anxious when you like meet somebody or when you speak to anybody, but what you do has consequences, and that's not meant to like put anxiety on anybody, but like everything is always unique. Every interaction you've ever had is never going to be exactly the same as any other one. But there is a level of excitement, I think, that comes with PC relationships, because you know that they care about their PC.
Yep.
You care about your PC, I assume. I'm making an assumption.
They're going to fight for them, and you're going to fight for you.
Exactly. And therefore, if the relationship goes south for any reason, goes sour, I mean, it's probably going to feel different. And again, that's not to say that the storyteller doesn't care about their NPCs. I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that they do very much. But their job in the game is different. Their role is different. Their role is to flesh out the world, to create a world in which the PCs can thrive and grow and act and do things. Yeah. Can I have that drink?
Absolutely.
Drug
Okay,
producing
Zesty,
skeletons.
I might have to ask you to elaborate a little bit on your question here. If two characters are in a relationship, of course they plan things eventually, but do the players have a right to demand collaboration on death sequences and how it plays out with grieving in-game? After all, it is a new level of involvement. Do you mean, should the players be determining, like, if they're in a relationship and they want to, like, go out in a blaze of glory fighting side by side? Like, what do you mean in terms of death sequences? Like, do you mean pre-planning the death, or do you mean should the two of you have like a way of grieving for fallen comrades that are not the two of you? So I just need a little detail there.
I want to wait to hear back, I guess, but I do think that's a really interesting question because, yeah, if you're again, not to quote LARPs too much, but if your PC in a game is just like, I'm gonna like fall on the sword, and everyone else is like, why are you doing that? Like, there's no reason for you to, that's one thing. If your beloved character, sacrifices their life for some reason in the game, that can have a lot of impact on other players. If you're in a relationship with another character, they get more say?
Elaborating on, yeah.
Right.
I don't think my answer is going to be a particularly popular one. I think if your character died, the most special thing that you can see in the grieving process is everybody else grieving how their characters would grieve for you. I think if you have a say in how that happens, that takes away from some of the magic. As opposed to, this is a cathartic process, right? This is a send-off before you hopefully roll up another PC. If you wanted to leave like any like last words or a message for people, then I would suggest talking to your GM about maybe having a will or some kind of letter that's found after you die. A recording, absolutely. But I don't think you should have a say in the grieving or the rites. I think that should be a gift to you as a player. Should
the other person have a say in your death, though? As well, like just the other direction.
Well, I think that's definitely worth having a conversation, especially if it's a really big part of the other person's character story now, it's but that might be a really cool thing to play out in game. If our two PCs are in a relationship and I'm like, no, the only way we can destroy this active volcano is if I go in there and I punch out the volcano core. And then Scott, as his character, is like, no, don't, like, and then maybe we have a timeout and maybe I'm like, Scott, can I talk to you about this? Because I think I want this to get like quite serious. Yeah. And then maybe we take 5. Yeah. And then we come back and then we can play out that moment as our characters.
I think punch Kano.
I gotta punch out the core.
I guess there's a temptation, I think, to surprise people at the table with stuff. And I mean, let's be real. Surprising people with something can be a really effective role-playing moment. If you surprise somebody with an action or a phrase or whatever, I've certainly, we're not going to get into it, but I've certainly said a whole bunch of shit in games on this channel that I think surprised everybody, including myself. And I know Liz has, I know we all have.
Yep. Yeah.
But I don't... Yes, but I don't think... Just as you wouldn't surprise another PC by doing something to them without their consent, you probably wouldn't surprise them by ripping your relationship apart without discussing it with the player first. Like, it would be, I think it's a really interesting question, but I feel like it would be akin to being like, I'm breaking up with you. Whoa, like, where is this coming from? And that could be the conversation they're having in game, But if the player isn't necessarily, especially if the player's like really invested, right?
Good night,
it's going to
Zesty.
kind of hurt potentially.
And if you're completely if you're completely taking your scene partner by surprise there, then that also means that the conversation might be longer and more repetitive than you would like, which means that you are jeopardizing everybody else's time at the table. Sorry, you're monopolizing the time at the table to do that. Whereas if you just say, hey, like, can we take a 5-minute break because there's a scene that I would like to introduce. Kind of like how we talk about in Good Society, sort of pre-planning the scene, as in, I would like to have a tearful confrontation in the rain. You can say that and then not talk about the content of it. Or we could go aside and say, hey, I think my character is going to try to break this off. How do you feel about that? And if Scott says, I am not ready to deal with that tonight, then that's fine. Then it doesn't happen. Then you talk about it more. You message back and forth before the next session, and you see if you can come to a compromise.
Yeah. I'm going to say something that is a spoiler for Changeling. So I think Wes or anybody else who hasn't watched, just like if you don't listen just for a moment, I'm going to do this when we're ready to jump back on.
Weirdness,
Hello, weirdness, thank you. Emotions are also a weakness of mine, but I have a strength in logic. Just kidding.
It's true though. You're not
what?
kidding.
So, I just wanted to point out, and again, I'm hoping, Wes, that's okay. In Change, just speaking of death and so on, in Changeling, I had a very frank conversation with John at some point towards the end of the campaign, where I was like, I think Brom is going to want to go out in a blaze of glory at the end of this game. That was what I said. That is not what happened, as we all know. But I was fully prepared for it, and we had a conversation where it was like, okay, this is how you see your character ending? And it was like, yes, and I was like, yes, I think that actually would be very appropriate. It did not happen, and I think that the ending,
Despite your best efforts.
despite my best efforts, I think the what we ended up achieving in the story was really exciting too. I did not say that directly to the other PCs, but I do think if the dice had fallen a certain way, we would have had that conversation on the fly. So, I do think that. Okay, I'm going to do this for Wes. Is that okay?
Yep.
Welcome back. Hello and welcome, everybody. Wes did have a question. Maybe I'll wait to address it until Wes is back, perhaps?
Until Wes confirms
But,
that you're back.
Hey, Aravana, thank you. What are those little clovers for?
Thanks, Aravana.
Thank you. But the question, which is actually... okay, no problemo. It's similar to John's, actually. Mm-hmm. What do you think of characters rolling up characters that are already in a relationship before the game begins? We've kind of discussed the pros and cons of it.
Yeah, we addressed it before you arrived, so we'll just like cliff notes it.
Cliff notes. Do you want to do that?
Cliff notes being...
I can do that.
It is really useful. Kung Fu Fenris brought up the fact that if it's hard for you to in-game create new relationships, then having pre-established ones can be a great way of circumventing that. Mm-hmm. Have conversations, propose things to the other PCs at the table, propose things to the GM about pre-existing relationships. Flesh out a little bit of a backstory, moments that the two of you can refer to that you've shared in the past, maybe have shared secrets. Don't go overboard, obviously. Don't give the GM like a mountain of shit. And in fact, if stuff can be established between PCs, that's probably a bit easier for the GM to deal with. But it can be really great. Just as always, make sure that you're not monopolizing the table with all the stuff you've come in with and leave no room to build anything new.
And that's what I wanted to highlight as well. It's naturally going to... there's a default setting for a party in an RPG, right? I mean, not default, but like historically or traditionally, by default, people get together in a game because they have to, for one reason or another. Usually conflict.
Rocket and Groot are a great example.
Hey!
They came in with a pre-established relationship, but they only became the Guardians of the Galaxy when they met.
That's a really great example, actually, because we know who they are, and the story gives us a chance to see them operate. It's like we always see them together in that story. I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, the first. but we still get to know them individually because of how they interact with other characters.
Exactly.
You're doing yourself a disservice if all your character is half of a relationship, right? Like, you're doing yourself a disservice by not getting to know who you are through other characters. And you're doing the table a bit of a disservice if all you want to do is roleplay with one other person.
Yeah.
Star-Crossed is a great tabletop role-playing game, one-shot, that I have not yet played, but I have seen and can't wait to play with this one, because we live together, so it'd be easy.
It's gonna be bananas.
It is gonna be really dumb, frankly. We're gonna... The tower's gonna fall over because we have cats. Like, it's just a disaster. But, like, if you want to play a game that's all about building a relationship with one other person, there are games for that. You can do that. Hot Gay Bro Dragons is another amazing game. I actually cannot recommend it enough.
Oh my god.
Go look it up. Literally, anyway, I won't get into it, but, like, the whole game revolves around how much do you love your bro dragon? and how you kind of, like, express that. It's so sweet.
In ours, you were a tiny, tiny dragon, I think.
And you were a very large one, yeah. And I would, like, snuggle up, like, in your... what are those called? Scales, yeah, or whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
It was really cute.
So there you go. And then there's the equivalent Thirsty Sword lesbians.
Wow, amazing! Incredible. Oh my god.
So I'll have to check that out. But, like, there, if that's what you want to do, friggin' go nuts. You don't need to do that in a... Like, you're doing everybody, including and especially yourself, a disservice if you're not open to the idea of the game that you're playing in.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Cool. I hope that answers that question. What do we want to talk about next over here? There's lots.
Okay. I think we should talk about Crosshair's question.
Awesome.
Because we can bring back some of our favorite case studies. Have you ever had a character be in love with another character in game, but someone else was in a relationship with them, Scott?
I should know this.
I even, like, told you which case study we would use for this question. You don't remember, do you?
No.
Okay.
It's gonna come to me, though.
Speaks of silence.
Oh, who? Oh, yeah, I guess that's a bit weird, eh? In Exaltwitch Nexus, there was a character who, long story short, was like, I think, she enjoyed the company of a lot of people, and specifically, I think, was sort of searching for her mate, because in that universe, there's a concept of, like, soulmates, essentially, between solars and lunars. And so, when she came across our merry band, she... Speaks of Silence, wanted to be in a relationship with multiple members of our party. So we did not have a menage a trois, as it were, but there was definitely some, I wouldn't say drama, but there was definitely some conversations around a relationship that was developing between a PC and an NPC, and then that same NPC and another PC over time, and sort of seeing that change and shift away from my PC and towards another PC.
I don't remember when that actual switch happened. It just...
Me neither. I have to rewatch
because it was very gradual, I think. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it wasn't anymore.
That's it.
There was definitely tension, lol.
So I
definitely some tension.
So have I ever had a character be in love with another character that was already in a relationship? Yes. Did we therefore make it so that my PC had other options / relationships to pursue so he wouldn't be a sad sack all the time? Yes. Very important. Yeah. What do I want to say about that? I think it I'm not saying that every PC needs to, like, always pursue romance at all times so that you don't get, like, caught out in the rain looking in on another perfect relationship. Like, no, of course not. But that would be horrible. Yeah, nothing wrong with being emo. Nothing at all. If it's your whole character, though, it's just a bit one note, I guess is what I'm saying.
John...
Very rich coming from
John was very good when I was telling him what kind of character I wanted to play for full party, saying, look, you need you need to have some kind of pre-established relationship, and you need to be able to tell me what that is. And I was like, okay,
Cool.
fine. She has a brother that she loves very much.
There you
And
go.
he was like, great.
Yeah.
And that developed over time, and it ended up being one of the most gratifying things to play as that character in that campaign.
But you also found a reason for your character to need the rest of the party
Yeah.
and make it a full party.
Not completely.
No, but like,
Not completely.
no, but like, you know what I mean? Like, when some people want to play like a lone wolf style character. Party, great, good for you. Again, though, you're doing yourself a disservice by not wanting to play the game that everyone else is playing if you're playing in that game.
Yeah, you can play a lone wolf character, but that lone wolf character needs to have a reason to be in this campaign. This game with these people, you need to figure it out.
We didn't have a Zenith.
No.
That was one we didn't have.
Yeah.
I was sorry, I was sitting there going like,
Well,
wait, what?
Yeah, you can tell by how we behaved.
You can tell
There was no
you
god
can tell
there.
by how it went.
there was no god presence.
Incredible.
Nobody spoke to Conky in that one.
So, you know, I think I think it can be a really cool moment for your character because, again, much like in real life, how we interact with the knowledge that people that we love, perhaps things don't work out with them, and then they go on to do other stuff, or we go on to do other stuff. You know, how that knowledge works is a really interesting thing to explore in game. And maybe you get a chance to explore something that you, the player, have never experienced. Yeah. That can be really cathartic or really sort of like horizon broadening. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say about that.
So we already pretty much answered John's question here, this one.
Yeah. So then this was Anders, I think, and then this was also Jorn. I need to use the washroom though. Is that okay?
Oh.
I know we're like, well, no, we still have half an hour, so I would probably be really bad news in about 20 minutes. I'd be like,
yeah, you're gonna have to pee when we're talking about ships. We can't have
no!
that.
Oh, ships conversation. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay.
So why don't you go pee? I'm gonna start talking about this,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about ships later.
What's wrong with the washroom? Kung Fu Founders. You don't like my use of language?
He pees in the sink.
I'm going.
And it's a thing that he does. And there's nothing wrong with that. What?
I'm just like...
It's a toilet.
La toilette. Okay. How do you make the romance feel relevant to the overall plot and not a distraction from it? That's a biggin, because it depends on who you get into a relationship with. Now, if you are playing something like Exalted and you have a couple of NPCs joining your merry band, then I've found from personal experience that if you start a romance with one of those NPCs, it's pretty easy to work that into the overall plot because you all travel together. So just every so often you give them a little smooch and then you go off and fight the big bad. Maybe you, because you're in a relationship with them, maybe when they're hurt, you react in a very fiery way. Exalt Witch Nexus being a big example. I took Ray and Ember's relationship and I made it so that whenever he was injured or in danger, that really made her see red and go to defend him. Or get busy in a cave or a tent. Yeah. So that's good. But then there are other options, like say you get into a relationship with a shopkeeper in a city and then your party leaves the city. Okay, are you going to keep up a letter campaign? Are you going to visit them whenever you're back in the area? Is it going to be more of a casual thing? So you need to be aware that you can't, if you're on the other side of the world, drag your entire party back to see your love. You can't do that. You can't make your romance more important than whatever the main plot of the story is. But you can find ways of working it in, and your GM will probably recognize that this could be a good opportunity, say, to have your love be captured and used as leverage against you, or to have somebody impersonate your love to manipulate you, like by a letter. Like, there's some really interesting opportunities there, and you can kind of make the romance as big a part or a small part of the story as you want, as long as you're aware that it can't all be about you. There's no I in campaign, but there is an us. Nailed it. Now I'm thinking of the game of my character is figuring this out in my game. She had started to pursue a chica, but doesn't know how long they can stay. So, Delia, that means that there might be this really beautiful, like, tearful goodbye scene in your future. How fun is that gonna be? Or like, I promise, babe, I'll never forget you. And then as soon as you've landed on the neighboring shore, you've like found someone else that made your heart go pitter patter. And maybe that's the character that you want to play. Maybe you're writing soppy love poetry to them on the decks of your ship. And maybe you make that a thing where you just like are like kind of moaning about them, or whenever your character like gets too merry or too into the mead, they start to sing love songs about them. The possibilities are endless. Now I just really want, please promise you'll update us, Delia. Promise that you'll update us on that. I would really like to know. What is this? This one? Game of Thrones wrap, 7 minutes long. Yes, please do. Post about it in Discord, because now I'm way too invested. I need all the tea, please. Everybody get your shipping pants on as well, because in about 10 minutes time, we're going to be talking specifically about Exalt Witch Academy, which means if you're not fully caught up, there will be a spoiler warning in effect.
What's happening?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. What was amazing? Huh.
Delia.
Were you doing
This?
Oh, fantastic. Didn't know how long they can stay.
And I threw out a whole bunch of ideas about writing sappy love poetry on the deck of a ship. My lady love, I'll never forget you.
God. I turn to the bow. I put my face in the spray. And I think of my love.
Your hair is blowing in the breeze. The dolphins seem to call out your love's name as they float past.
Dolphins generally don't float.
They leap.
That's the one.
Bound.
They play
through the air.
In the surf. Do we have anything else to discuss other than... We definitely have stuff other than ships to discuss, right?
I think we should do let's recap. Quick recap.
Step 1. Step 4. Quick recap. Quick recap. So I think some of the cooler things that have been said today: romance as an extension of the natural idea that your character's gonna have relationships with people around the table, PCs and NPCs alike. Sometimes your character will find something attractive about a PC or an NPC. And perhaps both of you will pursue a relationship, a romantic one.
And when that happens, it can be really helpful to separate what your PC feels and what you feel to avoid bleed as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Some helpful ways to do that is tagging in and tagging out to sessions, or if you want to get really specific to romantic scenes, you could have separate tags for those just to make it super clear. And also writing in character can be very helpful.
Having session zeros is, we're obviously now huge fans of it. And I think even when we do one-shots, we tend to discuss, like as a team, we tend to, good night.
Congrats on your job, by the way, Wes.
Oh, did you? Did you get it? Sorry, I haven't been on Discord all day.
Different position.
Oh, fantastic!
They offer a
Excellent,
different
excellent stuff. Congrats, big fan. Even when we do one shots on this channel, we tend to discuss in advance, like, what is the game? What is the system? We're not all going in blind, right? Like, and the person who is kind of facilitating it will probably ask questions about the kinds of things that they expect to see, the kinds of things that they hope to see or hope not to see. And yeah. Just think
God, you clipped the whole thing.
Yes! Oh, I'll be watching that later. Don't you worry, Rocky.
Oh, we pulled out. So
We're not watching it now.
No, of course not.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's gonna be adorable. Session zeros. Yeah, so the idea of just like setting expectations and limits for people around the table, especially important if you're interacting with. Yes, Rocky.
Also tweet it.
Woo! Especially important if you're playing with people that you don't regularly play with or are new. Especially important in large settings. Then it kind of falls a bit to you to keep yourself safe, but also it falls to the organizers to make sure everybody's on the same page about stuff.
If you're pursuing relationships PC and PC, just be very aware of the other people at the table.
Yeah.
And even when it's a relationship with an NPC, do your best to incorporate it into the main storyline, or at least make it not completely monopolize the game. Just be aware as you're playing things, like what percentage of the pie is going to your storyline and what is going to everybody else's.
Yeah. This isn't a recap, but I think it actually bears getting into here. Role-playing games can run the gamut in terms of like tone and content, right? All the way from swashbuckling adventure to depressing emo
To
death traps, etc. to whatever 10 Candles was, basically, I guess what I'm getting at. I'm just kidding, but like, Peter! We love Peter. There can be a whole range of tones and moments and styles and things that people find exciting in any game. And that means that for some people, I think, they don't want their romance mixing with their,
dragon slaying.
Dragon slaying. I was going to say goblin crushing, but like doesn't have to be crushing. And some people very much are like, all I want to do is be in a Regency romance. That's all I've ever wanted of my life.
Where's Aragorn?
Aragorn, do you feel seen?
I feel seen.
So it's really worthwhile, I think, to, of course, to know what everybody around the table wants, but also to be aware, I think, of the fact that at its core, storytelling is about the people who are having the story told. Whoa, hang on. Let me rephrase
Storytelling is about the people who are telling the story?
Yeah, storytelling is about the people who are in the story that's being told. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what you said. Sorry. I don't mean I said what exactly you said.
No.
You said it correctly.
No, you're just trying to...
It's a banter. The banter is what really makes people want to come back to clinic hours. And so and people are interesting because of what they want, what they do to get what they want, and how they interact with others. And therefore, relationships make up a really important piece of the pie of what makes a good story. I would argue not everybody participates in tabletop role-playing games to experience stories. At least they wouldn't say that. But, just because people don't think they want to experience a story in the filmic or the sort of traditional sense, doesn't mean that they won't necessarily get... That's beautiful. I love it. It doesn't mean that they won't get enjoyment out of deepening their relationship with other characters in the game either. It's just about what people want.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my perspective, really, is that all storytelling is about the people. And part of what makes people interesting is how they interact with others. Therefore, relationships, and by extension, romantic relationships, are a key part of storytelling. And yeah, how you kind of interact with the world around you.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Welcome. Is it time?
I think it's time. Yeah, let's get into it.
Ships.
Who are they? What are they? How do they work? They're things that float on the water. Wrong. Relationships.
What follows will most certainly contain spoilers for Exalt Witch Academy. Proceed at your own risk. I'm dying to talk about ships, and this is a perfect opportunity to do it.
Yeah, Liz is jonesing for this.
Jonesing.
I have to. I'm not calling everything out here, Liz. I have to say the way that different people participate in role-playing games always tickles me pink. Like, I love people who write stuff. I love people who are like costume up, whatever. I find what you do for your characters is like so exciting and always really inspiring for me.
Do you mean like the writing and the music?
The writing and the music. And I don't often do those things, but when I do, I'm never disappointed. So I'm always inspired to do more of it because of you.
Thanks. Thanks, Brad.
Oh, where was I going with that?
I don't know.
But like, oh, right. The other thing that you love to do about games
Is talk ships.
Theory craft and ships. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Erevan is not a huge shipper. Totally cool. I think we should, acknowledge the fact that things sometimes turn out differently in a game than what we expect. Yeah. Whoa. Hang on. The group went out of their way to bring her corpse to a someone and have her resurrected. That's nice. See, I like that, Thelia.
Especially if your corpse was talking.
Oh, but Eravana would kind of like to see Pyres and Sneaky Newbie get together.
Who's Sneaky Newbie?
Sneaky Newbie, I imagine, is Flavienne? Eravana? The newbie to our group. And who is the sneakier one is Flavienne.
Because there's also Single Edge.
Single Edge is in the other Fang.
Oh, the temple and have her resurrect.
That's the ticket.
That makes sense.
We were like, triple
the
espresso?
triple X.
Whoa. Take one of these and call me in the morning. I'll promise you'll be... Oh, Siontel. Well, let's talk ships with Siontel, shall we? I mean ships, not ships with Siontel. I don't mean...
Oh, Eravana. Okay, very nice.
Is referring to Pyres and Siontel.
Perfect.
A very natural grouping of people. Siontel was very forward with her admiration. Nope. Just like attraction to? I don't mean like physical attraction necessarily, but like attraction to Pyres.
Yeah, she's just very brash.
Very brash. I agree with that.
And do you think Pyres is into that?
Brash people?
Yeah. Do you think he's into people who just like...
People who know what they
straight
want.
talkers.
100%. Yeah, I don't think he... Sorry. I know, based on his intimacies, that he's not a fan of people who are sneaky / lying / whatever by default. Like, as, at their core. I don't mind it myself, Scott, but like I know Pyres is not really big into that, so. Erevan is also going with Flavienne, wanting to see in a closer relationship with Aresta, romantic or otherwise. I think that's a classic.
I love how Aresta has been looking out for Flavienne so far. I think that's really great. And so far I'm seeing, John has introduced two NPCs that we invited into our Fang, and they seem to be quite similar to other members of the Fang, and yet they're having more conversations with their like opposites or people who don't immediately seem to be super similar to them. Flavienne has a lot of similarities with Gale, and yet she's done more interactions with Aresta. And Siontel, in many ways, is similar to Aresta, and yet has done most of her interacting with Pyres and Gale.
Yes.
I think.
Mwah. Wait, you think Siontel is most like Aresta? Oh, like straightforward, kind of that sort of thing. Yeah.
Very, trust is very important to her.
She also
wanting to prove herself despite what, regardless of what people believe she should be.
Okay, so obviously because Sail is a thing, I feel like that's a pretty good ship name. It's good. Flail, very good.
Flail.
Oh man, so Gale's just got all the good ones going. So yeah, okay, look. Pyrel is great. Oh, hi weirdness. Yeah, so I think there's really a lot to be said about the ships that might occur within the Fang as it stands now. I'm saying as it stands now because obviously we're only a few episodes in, and who the fuck knows if our Fang's going to get disbanded again or whatever, if people are going to get ripped out of the Fang again. We have no idea what's going to happen with that, so I just, for now. But yeah, the idea that, like, Flavienne seems to be like Gale, and Siontel seems to be like Aresta and I would say Pyres as well, but are immediately kind of involved with and interacting with their opposite kind of counterpart?
Someone who's their counterpart.
Cool. I find that interesting.
Me too.
Are there any characters that you specifically would like to see shipped?
Okay, well, I got two that I want to talk about. Firstly, I'm going to say that this comes into the use your word hole. Put your money where your word hole is, folks. I messaged John a few days ago before this and also asked his permission to talk about our conversation on stream tonight. Basically to tell him that, hey, John, I'm playing a character right now who has Charisma 1. And while we both talked about the fact that that doesn't mean that they are just like unlovable or unable to form connections, there are elements of being Charisma 1 that I wanted to explore. The idea of not being able to properly empathize with people all the time, having difficulty being vulnerable with other people, and I wanted to explore how that may impact them getting into romantic relationships. So I was very upfront with John that this is something I'd like to explore for Gale in the game. Maybe named a specific name. I don't know. I ship Gale and Siontel. I do.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know what Gale's thinking, but I like it.
Wait, no,
I
you
think
do
it's
know
cute.
what Gale is thinking.
Yeah, I know what Gale's thinking.
Do you? No, I'll get into that in a second. Sail. So you essentially approached John to say, like, hey, I'm thinking that these characters might get into a relationship.
Well, fun fact. I said, actually, John, Gale is developing a crush.
Aw.
And he said, cool. So what you're saying is, like, because of everything you've said about her being Charisma 1 and not knowing how to articulate stuff and not being particularly experienced in this area, she probably won't make the first move. He's like, this is all good to know. He's like, I don't know how my NPC will respond. I don't know what my NPC, they might want something different. But I've told him where my PC is at. And now whatever happens is still going to be very, like, feel very in the moment, because it's not like we've pre-planned conversations or anything.
No, but he's aware of the fact that you might, that your actions or lack of actions might, well, you know, he knows where they're coming from.
Exactly. You can't expect your GM to read your mind, especially if you're playing a character who has difficulty expressing themselves. Like, so now we can make this difficulty expressing herself part of the game because we're both on the same page.
Yeah.
Communication. Yeah.
Oh, look at that emote. It's so cute.
Sientel's giving you vibes of Speaks of Silence, and Flavienne is reminding you of Fala. They're both super sneaky, hidey, easy to hide off for makeout sessions and not let anyone know.
Ooh, so cute. I was a bit worried. Just Ella is sitting over there. I've covered my power button, but I realize I haven't covered my reset button. So we just have
Is
to be
that
real...
the reset
yes,
button?
Yes, it is. So don't touch it.
I almost touched it.
Don't touch button, dude. Don't touch. Just yeah.
My other ship is freaking Pyres and Brevin.
Oh, are we gonna talk about #Briars?
I want to talk about #Briars.
So Pyres has, I've said it a lot, and I'm still really excited about the fact that I'm playing a character who has a lot of intimacies. I'm collecting them like friggin' bubblegum baseball trading cards. Is that a thing?
What?
I'm collecting them like matchbooks. I'm collecting them.
What? What weirdness? What?
So Pyres is a character that
I'm gonna be busy tomorrow.
Oh, it's so charming. Oh, I love it.
Yes, baseball cards originally came with gifts.
Thank you, Ravana. Good. See, I'm not mad. I'm not crazy. It, like blankets, right? Yeah, I wanted to play a character who was very impulsive and outspoken. Outspoken. Not outspoken in the sense of like he has a thing that he believes in really strongly, and look at this, so cute. Not that he has something he believes in really strongly and therefore needs to tell everybody about it all the time. He's not like, save the whales, guys, save the whales, or whatever.
Seriously, you should save the whales.
But seriously, you should save the whales.
We all need to save the whales.
Consider taking actions that impact your environment for the better things. Yeah. But like, but someone who feels things very strongly and very immediately and acts on them. Without spoiling how last session went, I will say I think that I managed to achieve that role-playing goal. And I would like to continue to do that, but in a way that isn't necessarily... in different ways every time. I'm really excited to like have ways of exploring what it means to be impulsive and to do things that may or may not go well. I do realize I have a reputation as a player for making silly decisions, like decisions that impact my character negatively. But I want to play a character who is impulsive, so that he's not thinking about his own. Yeah. He's disregarding his own future as well.
That's a wonderful kind of player to be. The type of
Someone
player
who does silly things.
No, it's not. But it's not
No,
silly.
I know.
Where everyone is like, oh no, Brom, oh no, Pyres. But in fact, if you hadn't done that, then it would have just been Pyres going to bed at a responsible hour and not talking back to anybody, and the scene ending. Like what you do as a role player is you raise the stakes and make everything more entertaining.
Well,
so while people go, my God, Pyres, why would you do that? Inside they're cheering that you did that because it created conflict, drama.
Sure, but there's a time and a place too, right? Because like we've said today, it's not just my game, it's our game, and so everybody should get a moment to do the same thing. So I was really happy with how last game went for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is how we interacted after those events.
Yeah.
However, relationship-wise, I don't have any particular intimacies, I don't believe, about relationships in general. Some characters have, again, quick shout out to Exalted Third for having the Principles and Ties intimacies section. Mm-hmm. It's really cool for forcing you to name the things that you like or don't like in your character. It's a great system. And also it has mechanical benefits, which kind of provides some extra crunch for people, Yeah, oh, okay, cool, Aravana. Yeah, no, me too. But, I don't have any particular principles about the idea of relationships, right? Some people might have a principle of, I'm always loyal to the relationship that I'm in, or... to be alive is to be free in all things,
if I
or
leave
whatever.
my lady love on the shore, I will write poetry to her on the ship until we meet again.
But you don't have an intimacy
I will
about
call
your
her
lady
name
love.
into
Yeah.
the wind.
No,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that. However, I have determined, I think, that because Brom feels things strongly, I think it would be useful for him to have a character he feels passionately about, even if he also feels passionate in a different direction. And therefore, I've settled on some intimacies for Brevin. So I have two ties towards Brevin.
Are you comfortable revealing them?
It's public. It's on my character sheet. Check out the Discord for casting Atemi links if you want to see our character sheets as they are now. Pyres has a major intimacy of bitter rivals with Brevin, but also a minor intimacy of I think I called it attraction.
Nice.
No, I think I said desire, actually. I think it was desire for Brevin. I'd have to look it up now. I should know that. But I have a lot of intimacies to keep track of, I guess is what I'm saying. And a lot of things that matter to him. So we haven't had a chance to explore that, and I will admit, I didn't add those intimacies until, after game 4 or 5. Therefore, that kind of colors the original interaction we had with Brevin, right? Looking back on it now, I wonder how it would be different if I had named that for myself originally. But this is... Oh, thank you, Aravana. Ooh, he looks great. But I think that's something that we talked about earlier. Do you go into a game with a romance planned out, like a pre-existing relationship, or not? I'm letting them kind of happen naturally because I want to see what happens when these things occur in game. Please be careful, Ella.
Do you think that Pyres and Brevin have just always been rivals? Do you think the rivalry got worse when they came back from winter break and all the shit went down with the Lost Hand? Like, do you think they've always had this really, like, mean-spirited rivalry? Or do you think it was, like, pretty, like, low-key, and then the Lost Hand stuff happened and, like, Brevin just felt really, like, threatened?
I would say that it's always been a pretty strong rivalry. Because they both feel that it's important to be leaders, and because fangs are often put kind of into competition with each other, they're naturally going to feel competitive towards each other as well. I mean, if they're competitive people, which they both are. I do think that the recent happenings have, of course, have definitely changed the game for their rivalry, made it more intense. I'm sure Brevin feels that we kind of cheated him out of getting a chance to keep his fang. And I'm sure Pyres feels like he's being super unreasonable because it's all circumstantial. Like, we fought him because he was being an asshole, not the other way around, right? Yeah.
Rusty actually makes some of those scenes make much more... No. Rusty instead of that. Great.
Incredible. However, I feel very comfortable saying, like, one of my original inspirations for Pyres is Draco Malfoy from the Harry Potter series. Clearly not an actual inspiration anymore. It clearly went much further away from that, almost immediately. But, like, the idea of, like, again, in that series, the main character of the book has a primary rival and antagonist.
Yep.
And I don't mean he who must not be named. I mean Draco Malfoy. Like, those two characters are at odds forever. And it makes it more satisfying when they eventually make love to each other. I did read that book properly, right?
Yeah, definitely.
No, but, like, it makes it more satisfying when things kind of change in their relationship eventually.
It's like Zagreus and what's-his-face?
Thanatos.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, that's a much better example. Thank you, Kung Fu Fenris. No, so I realize now in hindsight, clearly that's, like, a much stronger inspiration. I just hadn't actually, like, clocked it when I made the character, but that's clearly what's going on. But yeah, so Briars is where my head's at right now. But I will also say, before I considered Brevin, really, when John introduced Single Edge, I was like, oh, perfect. Like, a quiet, maybe kind of meek character, and, like, who's gonna, like, Pyres is gonna try to bring her out of her shell, but she's gonna end up bringing him out of his shell.
Now she's giving Pyres a piece of her mind in their meetings.
I figured that relationship was, like, surefire, definitely gonna happen. Now I don't know. Now I have no idea.
It still might.
Well, it still might, but I'm just not sure how he feels about her right now, given the events of last session.
Oh, does he think that she was in on this?
100%.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, it was a setup.
You think?
He thinks it was a setup.
Oh.
I don't think it was a setup, no.
Pyres.
Drama!
And he's mad right now, too, so he's all... He's itching for a confrontation.
Actually, he bounced back from that pretty fast.
Yeah, next thing you know, we're talking about dry wood.
Oh, yeah, right. That was my... Again, spoilers for the most recent episode, but it's not really spoilers. It's just I think that was my favorite. That was my play of the game was Gale trying to pretend she didn't know what wood was, like as a prince of the earth, being like, I do not understand the difference between firewood and wet wood.
Well, for the purposes
it was amazing.
Of burning.
No, it was fantastic. I was like, dude, like, no, it was so good. It was great. I'm into it too, Real Brick Wall. That would be excellent. And then we can have, like, a sweet confrontation where we make out.
Are we shipping Aresta with anyone yet? Do we think that...
I'm shipping Aresta with Flavienne. But...
I kind of want them to be best friends, though.
Yeah. I don't... No, I see.
No, but I also love... It could go either way. Those two. It could go either way right now. They could be, like, an amazing, solid friendship. Or they could be lovers. Or they could go back and forth.
this is a silly question coming at you all here. No, just it's a Kung Fu Fenris specific thing. Can the Dragon-Blooded can take non-terrestrial martial arts, right? Like, there's no reason that they can't. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But like, okay, so it's possible. It's just, I guess you'd have to find a specific teacher. Well, in fact, I guess.
Yeah, good luck finding someone who's going to teach you fucking solar martial arts.
Well, no, but like single point shining into the void is like a sword style. Oh yeah. Okay. You're right. Yeah. Okay. No, for sure. I guess
why is Pyres going to learn something?
No. I don't plan on buying martial arts. I've already maxed out everything I want to max out. I'm just sitting on my XP. Just kidding. It's good times.
I'm saving up for Wits 4.
Wow.
Which means I'm not going to spend anything on Sunday.
Wits 4, Charisma 1. Really good on the fly. Terrible with the words.
I thought of this really fast. You're dumb.
What?
That's true. Right, no, so sorry, Real Brick Wall. Yeah, I guess...
All right, Real Brick Wall.
Because they're introduced in the core, they are martial arts that are available to the Solar Exalted, but I guess martial arts don't have like martial arts don't have like a specific splat that they like belong to, other than Dragon-Blooded martial arts, obviously, because they're sort of like, yeah.
Do you read Righteous Devil as
Righteous Devil?
I fucking do now. Shit.
Hey, it's 7 o'clock.
Already?
Yeah.
Oh man, we were having so much fun. I'm shipping. I'm just gonna say this last thing.
Yep.
I really want one of us to like have a Braum walking in on Sophia and Zeron moment, but walking in on like two teachers. So we don't know that
which
many
teachers do you
Well,
ship?
we don't know that many teachers yet. So I guess I'm gonna say.
I'm gonna say Bracken and Juin.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like Viren and like Nuven, but like, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
There isn't anybody I would ship with Viren, other than I think Juin and Viren would be funny because they seem to hate each other so much.
Ooh, nice. Yeah. So, okay, cool. I just thought that would be a fun thing to throw in there. What a party! It's been good.
Juin needs a St. Andrew's cross in her
Mm.
What is gonna happen when our characters start making the times? You know, like the sexy times, the times of the sexy.
We're not gonna have sex in the barracks. Is that what you're
So
referring
where
to?
are we gonna do it?
There's acres of property.
Up against some dry wood.
Good lord.
The library.
I know a pile of dry
You do
wood.
not touch my books.
I think there would be
Oh,
something.
the bell tower is a good call.
Bell tower is a great call, and in
Shotgun.
fact, actually, I would venture to say that it was introduced specifically so that we have a place that we know is private. Now, not for sex necessarily.
Oh,
but like if you had to.
Seattle has definitely had sex like multiple times up there already.
No, but like for sure. But like I guess what I mean is, if you had to speak to Pyres, you could go up there with him. It was introduced for that reason. Which
Okay.
Ooh, the mess hall. After hours.
Want to make a
Let's
mess
make
in
a
the
mess.
hall.
Yes.
Viren's office because he's never there.
Let's break in and leave our butt prints on everything.
So, I didn't find your transcript, Pyres, but I did find your ass print in the ink. Well,
I found a perfectly shaped ass
there's in the wax
marked on my desk. That's actually amazing. Oh, it's you when you put your butt on the photocopier, which, by the way, I've never understood it. I think it's gross and weird, and that's just my opinion, man. But, like, that is a wrap. That's it. I don't think we can top that. Fantastic. Pyres, who were you in there with? I was alone.
What?
Oh. Just kidding.
Sail, Pyres and the wax seal. Seal your letters with Pyres' butt.
Hang on, I have to apply the royal seal of Cathak.
Oh,
Like, horrible. That's
it's
really
scalding.
good. Oh! It's okay, I'm a fire aspect. That's so gross. It's just incredible. We should quit while we're ahead for sure.
We've been behind a long time.
Very dissatisfying.
Thanks, folks.
Hey, thanks, guys. That was really fun. Yes, food is a good idea. We have lots of foods. Don't worry about that. Thanks. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
This was so much fun.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for letting us hold down the fort while John deals with his very busy week.
Yes. If you ever have suggestions for streams for any of us, there are specific channels in the Discord. We can't promise we'll take them, but specifically clinic hours topics are always appreciated. I know, John can talk about this stuff forever, as can we, but it's great to have a topic. So, yeah. Thanks, guys. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it really has. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, we have more Punchy.
Are we doing a new thing? I feel like you had some new stuff that you wanted to try, but maybe not tomorrow. I don't know.
I had said it would be something different. No, I don't know.
Did you actually say that?
Ugh.
That was a bad choice.
It's better for people to not think I ever mean.
Why don't we just start Spider-Man from the beginning? Just kidding.
Oh, great.
I'll figure it out. And Saturday Drew Crew.
Glad you were able to make it when you
Yay.
did. Saturday has Drew Crew. Sunday has more Exalt Twitch Academy.
Yay! My cheeks hurt from laughing.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, RPG Clinic. Just kidding. That was a real blast, guys. And yeah, join us on Sunday at 6 o'clock for episode 7 of Exalt Twitch Academy.
Hey, we've officially made it past the 6 eps for hooking up with somebody. That's great.
What do you mean?
Well, if Ember and Ray got together in ep 6
Oh.
of Exalt Twitch Nexus.
We should look that up.
I keep thinking it's 6, but maybe I'm wrong.
Episode 4 was the Mance? Or 3 or something?
What was the fire one?
I don't fucking know, man. We should look it up. But
Anyway.
It's been a party. And yes, of course, the rebroadcast
Yes.
of episode 6. Thank you, Thelia. We'll start remembering. Is at 11 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. So that's not tomorrow, but the day after. Join us for the rewatch.
We will be there.
Yeah, we will be there, and it's always a great time. See? Do you want to do the honors?
We'll catch you all on the flippity floppity, everybody.
Pew pew! Use your word hole.
Use your word hole.
Bye.